Welcome back. Arthritis affects 1 million people in Ireland, including 1,200 children, and is the single biggest cause of disability in this country.
National Arthritis Week begins tomorrow, so we've invited Aoife McCoy to tell us what it's like to live with rheumatoid arthritis, and she's joined by consultant rheumatologist Prof Geraldine McCarthy. Good morning to you both, ladies.
Good morning, ladies.
And thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Aoife, we might go to you first and get your backstory, because you were still a teenager. Before your 18th birthday, something was going wrong. You didn't necessarily know that it was arthritis.
Yeah, so about 2 weeks before my 18th birthday, I just started college, and I woke up one morning and I couldn't move without excruciating pain. I was immediately brought to hospital here in Mullingar, and I was kept in for 2 weeks. They knew that it was some type of arthritis, but because it wasn't the usual onset of rheumatoid arthritis, which is usually one joint at a time, or it's progressive. So after a few months or years going to different specialists, I was finally diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis.
And where was the pain? Was it hands? Was it knees, ankle, joints? Where was the pain in your body?
Yeah, on that first time and for a long time afterwards, it was everywhere. From like arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, can affect every joint in my body if I'm in a flare-up. So from my jaw, which is terrible when you're trying to eat, down to your baby toe, it's literally everything in between. It's just unbearable, like when the pain gets really bad and the swelling and all that.
So this was quite sudden, because when we think of arthritis, certainly when I think of it, I think of kind of stiff joints over a long period of time, don't you? This was quite sudden. You were admitted to hospital, and initially it was thought that you might have meningitis, Aoife.
Yeah, just because I couldn't move my neck, and obviously because the pain, I was very irritable and couldn't look at light, or that kind of stuff. So, but eventually they, when they got my bloods back and all that kind of stuff, they did see that it was an immune response, and because of the way my joints were swelling and I couldn't, clasp my hands or things like that, they did eventually see that it was some kind of arthritis, and just, dampen the flare down, which is what it was, is a flare. And I've had that, like I've had flares and ups and down days for 15 years now, so I'm well used to it, unfortunately.
And what was the treatment plan then, Aoife? I mean, were you put on courses of painkillers, steroids? What was the plan immediately straight after diagnosis?
Well, immediately it was steroids, just to get it back to a baseline. And then over the years, I've tried different courses of treatment. It's all trial and error. So it's going on different treatments, adding something, taking it away. It's like a recipe, to try and find exactly what works. And painkillers, they don't want you addicted to painkillers from day dot. So they start at the very bottom, the paracetamol, the aspirin, and move up. So, thankfully, I'm on the same medication for about 7 or 8 years, and it's still working, touch wood. Good. So that's...
We lost you for a moment, Aoife.
She's still there.
Geraldine, stay with us, Aoife, if you can hear me. Geraldine, we might move over to you, because you might have heard me mention there that, when I think of arthritis, I think of kind of slow, difficult, stiff joints, but over a long period of time. This was much more sudden for Aoife, wasn't it?
It was, but of course, when we talk about arthritis, we're talking about lots of different types of joint symptoms and signs. So sometimes people can develop their arthritis. It's almost like a viral infection, and that's particularly in younger people, and that's what that sounds like. And then in other forms of arthritis, it can be a little bit slower, particularly osteoarthritis, which of course is very common and a huge problem. That can be very slow onset. So honestly, we talk about arthritis like it was one disease, but in fact, it's lots and lots of different diseases. And in fact, in terms of Arthritis Ireland, not only are they dealing with arthritis, but they're dealing with other diseases associated, like scleroderma perhaps, or myositis, lots of different things, lupus. So it's a hugely broad spectrum of disorders,
In terms
not just
of
joints.
In terms of symptoms, Geraldine, what are the atypical symptoms that we need to keep an eye out for?
Atypical or typical?
Sorry, the typical symptoms.
Typical, okay. So if you think you have an arthritis, usually what it involves is swelling of a joint. If it's osteoarthritis, that swelling might be quite bony, but if it's an inflammatory arthritis, it may be much more soft tissue. And I would like to give a shout out for gout, actually, because gout, believe it or not, is the most common inflammatory arthritis available or that occurring in human beings at the moment, and it is the most poorly managed. With rheumatoid arthritis and inflammatory arthritidase, we've got fabulous drugs now that we didn't have in the past, and so morbidity has improved substantially. With gout, there just hasn't been enough attention paid to it, and it has a kind of a bad connotation sometimes because it's felt to be just to do with lifestyle, etc. But it can be extremely crippling, and people are inclined to keep quiet about it. So and that sort of arthritis is excruciating and comes on extremely suddenly. So as you can see, there's a broad spectrum of presentations.
And as you say here in the notes that it can affect children as well, and affects many children in Ireland, Geraldine. Would the symptoms be the same in terms of what to look out for in a child?
A little bit different because now I'm not a paediatric rheumatologist, but I do know that with children, they may not be able to articulate their symptoms, but you'll notice them limping, for example, or avoiding certain activities. So you've got to be a lot more, I suppose, tuned in when it's a child. And we really could use a lot more paediatric rheumatologists in Ireland because it is quite a specialised area.
Aoife, we might come back to you if we can for a second. In terms of living with rheumatoid arthritis day to day, how does it affect your day-to-day living? Because you said earlier on that you sometimes might get a flare up and that might put you out of action for, would it be a couple of days, or how do you deal with it day to day?
Thankfully, I have a great rheumatology team. So they have kind of provided me with the medication and the skills to deal with a flare. But it does happen quite regularly, and sometimes stress can bring it on, or if I have a cold, and a normal cold or a fever. But it is very hard, especially like I have a normal, I try and have a normal life, like I have a husband, a child and a house to keep. So, and I was working before COVID. So it is very hard to deal with that physically, emotionally and mentally. It takes a village, and that's really true when it comes to a chronic illness. Thankfully, I have my parents around. I have a great husband, but there's supports like Arthritis Ireland that run courses now virtually. But without that, I don't think I'd be in the same headspace that I am now, and I'm able to accept a lot more.
Well, that's brilliant that you're so honest about that part of it, because Geraldine, let me bring you in here. As Aoife says, it's not just your physical health, it's your well-being, it's your mind, it's your mental health, isn't it? It can take its toll on your mind.
Absolutely. And self-management is really important in terms of managing all forms of arthritis. And I think COVID has been particularly challenging for patients with arthritis this year because, it's been challenging for everybody in terms of mental health. But if you're struggling with an arthritis as well, that makes it twice as bad. So I think you have to really try very hard to exercise and adhere to a good diet. And of course, we all hear about people putting weight on during COVID, and that, of course, is really detrimental for people with arthritis. So it has been very challenging times, but it's great that Arthritis Ireland have recognised that, and they've all these courses online that you can find by going to their website to help people self-manage.
And we have those details on screen as well. Geraldine, thanks very much for talking to us this morning. Makes us more mindful of it. Aoife, we wish you well. Take good care of yourself. You're a busy mum, so look after yourself.
Thank you, Aoife.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies. Now, for more information on arthritis or National Arthritis Week, or indeed to make a donation, you can check out arthritisireland.ie.